Tiana Tukes. Hi.
Hi.
I'm so excited for this conversation. I don't know where it'll go. I am truly amped. But for anybody who does not know you, who are you today?
Today, my name is Tiana. I'm a survivor. I'm a leader. I'm a believer.
Ooh. Ooh, okay. We just like dropped some like big categorical title. I'm curious why. Can I ask why those three today?
Those feel honest,
Hmm.
and right now they capture how I'm feeling about myself.
Yeah.
Um, Survivor, in so many words, so many ways, like overcoming something and
Hmm.
overcoming many things. Leader, I lead organizations. I lead a charity that's focused on economic prosperity for LGBTQ people.
Hmm.
And believer, I had a conversation with someone, I think last week or so, who kind of told me in so many ways, like, you're a radical optimist. And
Yes.
I'm not owning that like, I feel
Ooh.
like a believer.
Ooh. I feel I refer to myself as a realist, and I'd be lying if I didn't say I feel like I'm envious of people who fall into the optimist category. Like, I'm striving to
Hmm.
definitely lean more and embrace more into that part of myself. But for someone in your sphere to be like seeing that in you and calling that out versus even just like you feeling that initially and then projecting that out, I feel like is such a wonderful thing because then it's like not only do you feel it, but also people are receiving what you're putting out. And it's this cyclical
Hmm.
emotional, I guess, reflection.
Yeah, we always don't see ourselves the way other people see
Yeah.
us. And sometimes it's really refreshing to meet someone. This person I don't really have a extensive relationship with. I had just met them. And I was telling them about the work I'm doing. And they told me, like, wow, like what you're asking people to sign on to calls
Yes.
for radical optimism. And I was like,
Oof.
I never I never thought of
Oof.
it that way because that's just how I live my life.
Yeah.
Um, but it was
Yeah.
helpful to get that language.
Especially from somebody who doesn't know you well. Again, that's
Yes.
like it's just putting things like really in alignment with like, oh no, no, like really what I'm doing is actually being met the way that I'm hoping for it to be received.
Yes. Hmm.
Like the validation in that without you seeking it.
Hmm.
Anyway, validating all those titles. Love that here.
Yeah.
What is the work that you do? And I'm going to have a lot of questions because I
Yes.
feel like I won't fully understand it. And if I don't understand it, I can imagine many people in our artistic space would love to understand it further, like myself.
Well, we have
So,
the time and the space to understand.
yes, we
So
do.
happy to explain. I am the co-founder and co-chief executive officer for a charity. The name of the charity is LGBT+VC. We are the first not-for-profit organization in the venture capital industry focused on LGBTQ investors. What does that mean for everyone? That just means
Mhm.
that we believe that economic prosperity is available and possible for all people through the transformative power of venture capital, through investing in the private markets, through investing in startups, early stage companies.
Amazing. How did you get into this work? First and foremost, just like I love an origin story so that we have context for somebody's drive and what they do in their career space.
Funny enough, I didn't always know I would end up in this space, but I
Mhm.
think that life has a funny way to reveal itself. When I got into college and my first year, I thought I would be a writer. I thought I'd be an art historian working at a
Yeah.
gallery and doing art history. But as life would have it, I met a number of people, one of them being an ex boyfriend, who told me, like, very clearly, legally blonde story of like, you're smart. It's like, you're smart. Why don't you try something else?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was doing journalism, I was doing quite well in it. And he was like, "You might want to consider this because I'm a person who is emancipated and estranged from their family of origin. So
Mhm.
I've been responsible for myself for several years. And then at the horizon or approaching the horizon of graduation, I was like, I could be working at a large media company, being a producer or on air talent, making a certain amount of money, which is really like a difficult to live on. Or
Yeah.
I could potentially do another field. And this partner I had at the time was so generous and offered me a different path. And that was really
Wow.
the beginning of exploring business, finance, and ultimately venture capital because it was a series of fortunate events in which I met really important people who were queer, people of color, Black women, Black lesbian women in particular, who showed me what was possible.
I love that even though, like you're no longer with this partner, there's still something so I mean, the seed of the thing has
Mhm.
propelled you into who you are today, and for me, it's always a wonderful reminder that even if things may not go the way we want them, there's always, like, something to be gleaned from
Yes.
from the lessons that we learn, even though they might be hard, and you're like, "Ugh, I had to go through that." But I hear that. For people who don't know what venture capitalism
Yes.
is,
Yes.
let's just please define.
Okay. Venture, business, capital, money. Venture capital, money for business. Really simple way to explain it. But in a very technical definition for it, I would say that venture capital is within the private markets. So we most people know about the public markets or investing in stocks and bonds on the public listings, right? Buying shares of company,
Mhm.
through an investment brokerage firm. Private markets, or as the name implies, are unavailable to the average investor, meaning you have to be an accredited or a sophisticated investor to invest in this asset class. Um, Different asset classes might include, private equity. People have heard of that. Probably a New York Times article about private equity firms buying movie theaters and retail
Mhm.
malls, things like that. They've probably heard of hedge funds, which is also in private markets.
Mhm.
And they've also probably heard of arts, like art collections, people who collect large, high price market art pieces. Those are all private in the private markets or asset classes. But venture capital is distinct in that it really began in some argue the 70s, like early 70s. That's when 1973, we're at the 5th year anniversary of the NVCA, the National Venture Capital Association, being formed. That was really the onset of the industry itself, and it's just a business in which people are managing funds of high net worth individuals and investing them into early stage companies like Apple, Tesla, etc. The companies that you know today were once even like there's a really yummy restaurant I love so much, Kava, which is venture
Yeah.
backed. So
Yeah.
VC touches a number of companies and industries that a lot of people don't know.
So on your daily basis, do you work with individuals? Like if I were I'm going to make up a scenario because I love
Yeah.
an example. If I were like a billionaire, you work
Yep.
with me to take my assets and invest them into private spaces, not public spaces, so that I can grow my what do I call it? My like money bank, like my assets,
Well, I feel
my
so
or
lucky. I feel so lucky to meet a billionaire.
thank you so
One.
much. Same. Me too.
Well,
Me
hello.
too.
And then if I am managing your money, well, so as a not for profit, we do not manage funds. So
Okay.
that's not our day to day mandate. We're here to promote education and participation as a charity. We're not here to manage funds. But
Got it.
if I were a fund manager, if I were a traditional VC managing a fund,
Yes.
yes, you might be a limited partner in my fund. You
Got it.
might deploy or grant me. We've signed an agreement, a limited partner agreement, in which you are investing into the fund that I'm raising, and now I am responsible. I have fiduciary responsibility to invest the money you've afforded me over a period of time in companies that I then source and decide to invest in.
Got it. So in the space that you're working with your charity, if I am
Yes.
still this gorgeous billionaire that
Yeah.
has graced this StreamYard,
As you are.
thank you so much. I will manifest this to really long degrees. If I am this billionaire and I come to your charity,
Yes.
what is our working relationship? Or what am I hoping to get from you with this charity? What are you hoping to get from me as a billionaire?
Well, any billionaires watching your podcast, they would know
I
that they
hope.
can
Yeah.
hopefully, they can donate and endow a number of our programs because we are, again, about education participation. We have a number of educational programs for LGBTQ youth, the first of its kind, focusing on college students. We just brought on students from universities like Harvard, Baruch, and SUNY New York, even
Mhm.
Indiana University and Tufts. Additionally, we bring on LGBTQ high school youth in New York City. We partnered with the mayor's office actually for the inaugural NYC SYP Pride program. That is the
Okay.
summer youth employment program, and it's the Pride group. And we brought on a number of students from inner city, the Queens, the Bronx, to intern and learn about careers in finance, business, law, and tech at large. And so a philanthropist, a billionaire philanthropist who would look to us and think, I might want to try give, giving to organizations that will help diversify the fund managers of the future because I myself have a vested interest in having a diverse portfolio. And so it's more a long game strategy because we are building infrastructure.
Yeah.
Today in the VC industry, there's not really railways, bridges, anything for LGBTQ people to thrive. And
Yeah.
I believe, and my co-founder Jackson, we believe that all LGBTQ people and all people at large should really strongly consider investing in private markets in the future because historically, we've invested in real estate and other assets, but real estate, private home ownership is really becoming out of reach for so many. But
Yeah.
investing in an early stage company at a smaller check size, that might be a really opportune time for them to grow
Yeah.
personal
So
wealth.
I know we're jumping around a little bit because I feel like I
Yeah.
want to like set the stage before we kind of dive into things that are
Yeah.
more like on the emotional end of things. Mentioning the elephant in the room of like money and finances that
Yes.
people have a lot of, myself included, feelings around, that things come up about worth and privilege and accessibility and resources and now we're not even just talking about like backgrounds and socioeconomics and I mean, identity and all the politics, all of the things. So I know when we mention money, we're talking about this, all of these things come into play. So I just want to like name that in the room
Yeah.
first and foremost and just like hold space for the fact that we're all coming to a conversation around, I guess, the umbrella of economics, money
Hmm.
from different places. Um, and also just like note that as we continue going into this, and I don't know where we're going with it, that things may pop up for folks who are listening. And so just like take care of yourself however you might need
Hmm.
to.
Hmm.
Um, and for you with this, how do you navigate folks who are maybe newer
Yeah.
to talking about it?
I think about the interns we just had, many of them from lower income backgrounds, again, in communities like in the Bronx and in the Queens, who
Mhm.
are LGBTQ immigrant families, first in their
Yeah.
families to go to college or considering college. They had no prior experience with venture capital, even to business and finance. But over the span of 6 weeks with us, they got a crash course in venture capital and finance and white collar professions at large. I think it's incumbent upon all people to have a growth curve, a space of courage for themselves to first acknowledge that like this is something that I don't know and it's wrong to be ignorant. It's
Yeah.
okay to learn something new and also
Yeah.
create and find the spaces that are welcoming and supportive.
That
I
part.
I'll be the first to say, I as a Black trans woman, as the first Black transgender person to work in venture capital at a firm with $1 billion assets under management, I know what
Yes,
it's
you
like
did.
to
Yes, you did, by the way. Like, I mean, like, yes, you did.
they're like, I know how difficult it is to
Yeah,
be the first and the only in a
yeah,
room. And I think you have to grow Teflon skin, certainly,
yeah.
but also recognize that there will be people there like me who are waiting for you, who are cheering you
Mm,
on, who want to see you in this space. But I'm
yeah,
not going to lie to you and say there aren't people in the way who also don't want to see you here, who don't
yeah,
want. I've been challenged to ask the question, why don't they want to see you there? What
yeah.
what what interest do they have in seeing you disempowered and
Mm,
disenfranchised? And
mm.
how does your current position either confirm and affirm the position you're already in? So I
I
think
love that.
so I'm very intentional in talking to people who are in positions I once was in, as a person who's been emancipated and estranged from the family, being responsible for my own income for several years.
Yeah,
I know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like not to have means, but I also know what it's like to have hopes and dreams and believe that, you one day can have material wealth, material good that you can do more good in the world than harm. And I think that at talking to people who don't know, it's like think about the possibilities that are available for you. Um,
mm,
and so like it's baby steps. It's not just like, we're all gonna like one day like have like people need to pay their rent, people need to buy
yeah,
food, buy groceries. I'm here and I understand all those things. But I think two things can exist at once. That even while you're going through very excruciating, difficult time, you can maintain the hope that tomorrow might be better. All storms are
yeah,
not of rain.
yeah. How do you find that strength within you? No, really, I mean that. Like, you know, and I imagine it's not the same every day, and sometimes it's probably
Mhm.
harder than others, and sometimes there's probably periods that are harder than others. But where do you find that for you?
Community.
Okay.
I have a really wonderful support network of friends that I've built over years, from university, from work, from life, from nightclubs in
Mhm.
New York.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and those have really shown up for me in difficult times. I'm grateful for them. But also, like I've learned over time that I'm my best partner. I'm
Mm,
my best support system, and so cultivating a real honest relationship with myself And also, like, as I said earlier, I'm a believer. I believe in something bigger than myself. I have a faith, and I practice that faith. And I think that also gives me a grounding in the sense that of like possibility and more is possible.
Yeah. Touching on community, because I
Yes.
know off this, we had kind of, talked a little bit about that. Um, and I feel like in my mind, community goes into this idea of like a collective and
Hmm.
collective power. And we
Hmm.
kind of talked about this off the mic. I'd love to talk about collective power a little bit and what that is. And then I feel like in my brain, I'm like organizing all these thoughts, and I feel like then I'm gonna
Yes.
like dive us into this
Yes.
combo.
Well, Pluto's in Aquarius.
Yeah.
And if all the astrology girlies like me, we know that Pluto represents power and Aquarius represents the collective. So we're now
Mhm.
transitioning to a period of the power of the collective.
Yeah.
So this is a time in which we should be talking between people like you and I and people listening to this about the power that we hold by coming together. And I think that the work of our organization and also the work of my life is about helping people remember their individual power and how to harness individual power for collective good. How coming together and sharing resources can be used to create affordable housing, access to
Yeah.
healthcare, and new jobs. It's not just about building individual wealth. So, like investing in private markets will line your pockets. Let's be clear. Capitalism is about individual benefit, but I
Uh-huh.
think it's also about cultural shifting as well. I was like, what would it look like for LGBTQ people as a group, as a population, to be collectively investing in companies and leaders and organizations that are built by and for them, that are building and hiring people that support them, and then
Yes.
evidently building out communities. That's a real cultural and zeitgeist shift.
Yeah.
So I'm intentional about that because I believe that we're stronger together. And as
Yeah.
much as we can share resources and be open and honest about, our values. And let's be clear, like we won't always get along. We won't always have the same vision, but I do think we have a common goal. And a common
Yeah.
goal should be amongst all of us is that liberation, bodily autonomy, visions of hope and prosperity for everyone.
Yeah.
Because how can we really be abundant and prosperous if people are struggling and unable to meet their own needs?
Yeah. So while you operate, and while we all
Yeah.
frankly operate in the systems that currently exist,
Yes.
which is a capitalistic structure
Yes.
that does line and value individual pockets over
Hmm.
the collective.
Hmm.
Through your charity, through your organization, through the work that you are doing, and arguably like the work that I strive to do in whatever spheres I'm in, like what do we have at our disposal? What do we have to work harder to cultivate to create this shift? What can we do to start to reimagine the possibility around working within the structure that exists for this new way of thinking with collective good in mind, would you say?
Now they get comfortable.
Yeah,
Get
I know.
comfortable
We're
now.
like, we're
Okay.
going there.
So how would that work? Hmm. I think people would have to be honest about the privileges that they hold first. Like they would have to
Okay.
look at their own personal balance sheet and say, all right, compared to others, I hold this social economic privilege or this social privilege or a certain like capital. I think
Mhm.
privilege is a difficult word. Like what position do I have in this world and how does it benefit me and how might
Mhm.
I leverage and give up that for the benefit of the whole? That's a really tall ask for most people. I think
Yeah.
most of they're honest, they're self-preserving and they're
Yeah.
self-interested and they're like, how does this benefit me? But I think what people are not seeing now, well, actually they are probably seeing now, is the effects of what happens when we focus too much on individualism. We're
Yeah.
facing a climate crisis, frankly, that was
Mhm.
built upon years of individual capitalist greed, right? You see
Yes.
so many industries that have a huge carbon footprint, and even like individuals who are, high earners who are impacting our climate ozone layers.
Mhm.
I, for one, believe what would it look like for all of us to feel collective ownership for like shared responsibility? We had a master class in this a couple of years ago during the COVID-19 pandemic that some of us may have forgot that like we
Yeah.
quickly we all quickly learned it's going to take all of us to get on
Yeah.
a one accord to focus on the good. And I believe in the next 10 years or so, we might be facing some really tough economic conditions that
100%.
require all of us to really think about how can I not barter, like how can I share in the wealth?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a clear reckoning of people not like, where's my, I can't pay my rent. I can't get a
Yeah.
home. I can't,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
yeah.
also just like the gap. I mean, I'm not, a financier human. I didn't study economics in any way. But if we're looking at data and we're looking at trends, which I again don't do on the daily, um, which maybe I should. I don't love that word, but like maybe maybe ignorance in this capacity is a choice on my end. But there used to really back in the day be a lower class, a middle class, an upper
Yes.
class,
Yes.
and that kind of like distinction doesn't exist
Yeah.
anymore. It just doesn't. We look at I remember over the pandemic specifically sitting on the couch, and there was a article that came out about Bezos, and there was a beautiful videogram that basically showed that like if you kept clicking a button to show his wealth in comparison to everyone else, you literally would just keep scrolling to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right for what felt like honestly ever. Like your
Hmm.
finger got sore from continuously seeing how much more wealth he has than even people who are considered really wealthy. And just noticing how much money is possible and how it's not allocated, I'd argue, more equitably rather than
Yeah.
equally.
Equitably.
And how we've really there isn't even like the scale of evenness. It's like our scales are just totally a mess. And so as we are perhaps thinking in this collective mentality shift of like, cool, in the most beautiful utopic worlds where we're all looking inward and we're owning who we are, and therefore stepping up or stepping back as needed.
Hmm.
I think about like resource allocation,
Yeah.
and if we're thinking about a group of people that are already coming from a place of, I guess it's all perspective as I say this out loud because I am talking this out loud, but like as a coming from a place of people maybe having less.
Hmm.
But I guess that is in theory subjective. Like I'm thinking about less versus, in comparison to like Jeff Bezos. But
Yeah.
like that isn't even like a real comparison. And it's also like, do I even need that much if I am happy, content, satisfied, fulfilled with quote unquote less because I'm actually surrounded by things that fill me as a human rather than the things that are told I need to have.
That's a tall order because what I'm hearing what you're saying is that like there are people who are not even on the level of Jeff Bezos, and we're asking them to give more versus like let's be clear.
That's
I think yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and I think yes, I think it's both and right. I think like there's this personal responsibility of those who are not Jeff Bezos who can give out, but I'm sure Jeff
which is
Bezos is
everyone. Yeah.
listening, and he's listening to this probably right now and be like, oh yeah,
100%
I
clearly.
should,
Yeah. You're like, "Oh,
I
I
should
didn't
make a
know
gift.
that."
I should make
Yeah.
a gift. I should make a gift, and I'll send the wiring information later on, Jeff. No worries.
I'm dead.
But as I think,
Yeah.
but as we think about this work, it's everyone, all hands on deck, right? I think as we're waiting for Jeff to wire us the money, um,
Mhm.
we also can think about how we can make our own gifts out to the community. How we can give. It's not just resource; it's also time and talent. You have skills that you could offer. You have
Tell me
perspective.
more.
You have
Yeah.
relationships, and I think that's the wealth of the human experience that we also can offer. Let's be clear: there is literal resource because we live in a capitalist world that we do need dollars, we do need
Yeah.
wires.
Yeah.
But also you have time, you have talent, you have connections, you have influence, and that can be used to help to further a mission, to further a cause that can uplift and help others at large. So that's what I'm getting at is that like I think the first wave is yes, was all be on equal footing and equity and shifting the conversation position of lack one of prosperity. Yes.
Mhm.
And that involves all hands on deck and everyone thinking about how much can I give a little bit more? Can I give like, am I really, if I ask you, the proverbial you,
Yeah.
listening to this, if you, are you truly giving as much as you can give to any cause that to any
Yeah.
benefit to anything? How can I step up and do more? Even if it's like 5 cents or 50
Yeah.
cents or a dollar, like just anything you could give, and how that will shift your own mindset as the individual, say, from a place of abundance, than one of lack. I think that would have like a seismic, if everyone in the world gave a little bit,
Yeah.
how would our world look?
Yeah.
Uh,
I also love the idea though of it not just being financial, right? Obviously,
yeah.
we're meeting in this space talking about venture capitalism and talking about like which I want to veer back
And
to
they're not
in
about giving. Let's be clear. That's transactions.
correct. Yes, yes, yes. Call it
And
what it is. It
ownership
is.
is transactions, is ownership, is equity position, is like power and control.
Yes.
And that's what that business is about. And I
Yeah.
think anyone who's in it knows that because we know the law behind it.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about here is two different things about the economic tools and devices that can be used to usher in a new type of living and quality of life for all people, but
Yeah.
also talking about the heart of the matter of like, what
Yeah.
does it mean for people to give more? Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and that is the thing. I think for me, just thinking about it is like, what does it mean to give more? And you said it so beautifully of like it if you have the financial resources or even the ability to, yeah, give more like 50 cents,
mhm.
great. But if it's like, cool, right now on that front, I'm struggling and actually I'll probably need to benefit from those financial resources, but I do have a little time or I do have a degree in insert here that
Yeah.
allows for me to hold this kind of space or I have an actual physical space that I can give for people to share the space.
Yes.
And I love that idea of thinking about the way we show up and the way we give, not exclusively and extensively being only in the
Yes.
financial realm. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think about the community that I or the communities that I'm a part of and how so many of them are really interested in how can we better all of us
Hmm.
together and um, reshifting the things that we're taught in these systems that we're brought up in for better or for worse. It's a consistent muscle that has to be trained and untrained and retrained in order to like remember that there are possibilities besides what we've been taught of like it
Hmm.
doesn't only have to be this way. If we've all collectively decided to do things this way and create new spaces, this is a potential way of a possibility. Yeah.
And there may be people listening to this today who are hearing us saying, "All right, Tiana, all right, Jennifer, that sounds great. I write a
Right.
check, sure." But
Yeah.
what we're getting at is something else. It's like we're getting at the possibility that you listening to this might say, "I'm going to create a budget, a giving budget for myself, and in that budget, I'm going to allocate, yes, some monetary gift I can make to a charity, hopefully LGBTQ charity, because LGBT charities make 13 cents off of $100 given to charities on average."
Yeah.
Um, but beyond that, it's also like I have these talents, I have these gifts, I have
Mhm.
these relationships, and how can I find organizations in my community or nationally that I want to support and offer them to at no cost to them? And but
Yeah.
also, what we're clear is that let's be clear, everyone's gift has a price. When you're given the demand, you can ask the price for it. It's
Mhm.
about creating that clear boundary of saying, I'll give up to this point, but across this threshold, that's where the
Yeah.
price is. I'm not asking you to offer up everything they have. Let's create clear boundaries about what my
Good.
gift is and what I can offer you, but offer something. And I imagine, just try it for a week
Yeah.
or two and see how you feel, because there might be listeners today who feel just so disempowered and so
Mhm.
disenfranchised, feel like I don't have anything to give. And you might be surprised who you might meet on that journey. Other people like
Yeah.
yourself, and then you two might come together, or you three, or you five, or you seven come together, and you create something beautiful that you one day could change your perspective and also change your life as well,
Yeah.
in a material way. So just give it a try. I know I'm asking for maybe some.
No, no, but I think that's a wonderful like, trial for oneself and just like the way you exist for a week.
Mhm,
Um And also it's a shift that I think is even just contemplating what that could be or what that could mean allows for space for newness that isn't just the
mhm,
status quo. And also, so many of us, rightfully so, are going through a hard time.
mhm.
We are still in a version of pandemic, post-pandemic, epidemic. I mean, like we're in this
We're in it.
trauma. We're in it. We are, and it was a collective trauma that the system and society frankly forced us to kind of get back on the hamster wheel really quickly, whether we were ready or not.
Mhm,
And so many of us haven't really processed what all of that was, let alone the impact of that on our bodies, on our psyches, on our emotions, on all of it, and that is a real thing, let alone the fact that like on a global scale, on a national scale, like things are really divided and taught, and to just put it very, very lightly and not going
lightly.
there. Yeah. And then obviously on people's micro levels of how they're existing in their own personal spaces and their own personal trials and tribulations that they're going through. Like there's a lot happening. And so I think just that being an offering of like, what can you give to yourself if you just think, okay, this is, or it, honestly, it's like a really cool exercise. I'm just going to like take it a step and riff off of it of like you sit home at home, a piece of paper, or you have a little notes app or a Google Doc or whatever it is, and you write all the things that you're great at and all the things that
Mhm.
you love about your life and all the things that like, the connections that you have and the resources that you might have, and just like a full list of like self love, not in
Mhm.
like the woo woo way, and like a really like, no, I've had this degree and I studied these things and I'm really great at trivia and I'm really great at,
Mhm.
I love dogs and whatever
Yes.
it is, this whole list. And then not being like, oh, this doesn't matter because it's not, I can't, I'm not, it's not a transactional skill.
Yeah.
It's like, no, don't write that off just yet. Like, you don't necessarily know how these small little things that make up all of you are transferable, or might be this like trade kind of thing that doesn't require a financial lift, or that might
Mhm.
be what a space, an organization, a charity that you might become involved with actually needs to support what they're doing. I kind of love that as like a forget the like the cons list of yourself. It's
Yeah.
just the like, what do I have? What do I feel? What do I know? What do I believe? And what is me?
And what do you wanna offer to the world? That's the next,
Exactly.
it's like I have all these gifts, all these talents, all these perspectives, all these
Yes.
things, and now, like, now you realize on the balance sheet of your life, I have so
Yes.
much to give.
Yes. The
You know?
balance sheet of your life. If you need a one sheet for your website, I think that's like you go into Canva and you're like, download my, I love that. Literally like my balance sheet for my life, like how you go through that. Yeah. The balance sheet of your life. I kind of think that I wanna do that for myself just because, no, but it really, it's like, it also is like a reminder that you can always go to when things are really hard, to be like, "No, no, no,
Mhm.
let me touch base with, like, all the things of me," and remind myself, like, because this little thing over here in this small part of my life is not going great, a reminder that there is all this other stuff that I can go back to and uplift.
And then even more so is like, I'm using more financial terms here,
Please.
the portfolio of your life. That, like,
Yes.
you have your friends, you have your lover or lovers, you have, your community, your work that you do, your passion, your interest, your vocation, your avocation. Then you have the things that you give to your interests, your hobbies. Like, you have to create this life that is robust and diverse. And then one of the best things you can do as an investor is have a diversified portfolio. You can't be over indexed in one sector. So, like, if you are all work and no play,
Yes.
very boring. And it's like, if that job goes, honey, your life is
Yeah.
flatlined, and that portfolio is like, whoop, done.
Mhm. Yeah.
But, like, if you have a good mix of all those things, you become happier, healthier, and you also become more interesting.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's just one more thing,
Yeah.
and you need that balance. And so I'm not one to say this prescription, you have this description. I think it's up to every individual to find out what works best for them. But I think is everyone should have a mix
Yeah.
and a mix that feels right for them.
Yeah, I also love that you're like, "I need to do this through my terms of, like, finan." I'm like, "Yeah, I wouldn't even have pulled the word portfolio out from anywhere." Like, you're like, "And diversification," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yes, please." I really think this is like a one sheet for you to build somewhere to, like,
Okay.
be like, "Look, this is my philosophy." I'm kind of obsessed with it. Okay, now venturing from here into the marriage then of, I guess, my world and your world a little bit, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's like why we're in this space, which is how the arts, I don't represent the arts, but I'm coming from that world,
Yes.
how the arts and money, or,
I don't represent the world, but I come from the
exactly,
world.
exactly. But that's what I mean. Like, we're not representing, we are a small little thing in the space. But how these two huge
Mhm.
categories that we all interact with in some capacity, whether we want to or not, whether you define yourself as an artist, whether you define yourself as somebody who, I mean, there's many free, like, who you could be in the world of finance, but like
An
as
investor.
somebody who investor, great. Um, how do we begin A, supporting each other better,
Mhm.
B, creating more ways to overlap, C, I'm just riffing here, like, ways for us to actually uplift one another. I guess for me, and I think that's ultimately like why we're here having this conversation, is like, and especially obviously recognizing like specifically the LGBTQIA plus community, like, how do we really begin bridging this? Or what are some ways in this little conversation we're having right now that we can
I love
just
this. I love
spitball.
it because I'm gonna say what I believe, that
Yes, please.
there's no us and them, there's no
Great.
you or me, it's all me. Like, so the idea that you're over there in art world and I'm over here in finance world, that's not true. We're all here together in one world. And I
Yes.
believe that I had a conversation with a philanthropist last week or so, and I was talking to her about the work that we do. And
Mhm.
I read to her our mission statement that
Can you
we,
say it out loud just so that we
yes.
can hear it?
So our mission statement is LGBTVC's mission is to ignite LGBTQ economic prosperity through the transformative power of venture capital. Our vision, we seek to be the world's best-in-class provider of education and opportunity for LGBTQ investors and a leading voice in education, advocacy, and research related to LGBTQ finance. Now, what was interesting, the operative word here was investors, because that philanthropist, the person who worked at a very well-known foundation, she said the word that tripped her was investors,
Interesting.
because investors can mean, are you speaking about investment professionals who work at these billion-dollar funds? Or are you talking about individuals? And to
Mhm.
me, I believe every human being is an investor.
Tell me more.
And you invest not just your money, but your time and your talent.
Yeah.
And to your question earlier, I believe every human being is an artist. Every
Mhm.
human being is a person who creates an artistic life. You dress every day, you are expressing yourself, the way how you use your hand gestures, the tone of your voice, what words you choose. You're making art even right now. This is artwork we're making together right now, this
100%.
conversation.
100%.
This is art and science. And so I don't see those things as disparate,
Okay.
as disconnect, mutually exclusive. I believe that all people possess in them different aspects of their personality. And
Yeah.
so, and as your question earlier, how do you bring this worlds together? Is recognizing that I am you, I'm Jennifer, but you are Tiana. Like, we are,
Mhm.
and you are an investor. You may not understand. You probably see yourself externalized and say like, oh,
Yeah.
that person there is an investor. They know about this thing. But
Right.
if you do have a 401k, a Roth IRA, a retirement fund, just a mutual fund, you invest a little bit in on Stash app on Acorns, you're an investor. Sorry to break it to you, listener. You're kind of an investor. I'll give you a certificate. That's if you want an official one. But if you have done anything in the public or private markets and put even a dollar in, you're an investor. And even beyond that, the moment you decided to go to school or to go on a date with someone or go to the store, you're investing your time, your
Right.
energy in something, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's about shifting your perspective to realize I am already an investor. And like, there isn't this gate. And I think there's so many people in positions of power who would want you to feel like you couldn't be and you aren't already one. And it's
Right.
about shifting your perspective to realize, like, wait, I'm already in this practice. Now, there's a degree, there's a spectrum, there's a spectrum of investors, but you're on that spectrum. It isn't a
Yeah.
binary of like, you cross this threshold and now you're an investor. I believe that every human being has something to invest, and therefore you are an investor. And that,
Yeah.
but also goes to like the artist question about like, how do you handle those worlds? Like, investors have to realize they're artists. Artists have realized they're investors, and recognize there's a shared mutual interest and benefit of us doing work together and sharing the talents they're in, because there's an art to investing as much as there's a
Mm.
science to it. And artists have to invest their time,
Oh, yeah.
their talent, and also resources to
Oh,
make their
yeah.
product into the world. So and they need, I don't know, I just don't see them as disparate, as disconnected.
Yeah. I I hear that. I love that. I think
Here we
I
go.
also I'm no, 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 no. I'm owning my own biases or whatever, or, whatever, and that I think for myself, and I'll own just me in this conversation because I cannot speak on behalf of every artist ever. But for me, it's like, when you've been told so many times that you're not good at something, you start to believe it. Or
Mhm,
you've been
mhm.
told so many times that you don't belong somewhere, you start to believe it. And when you've been told so many times that um, things are just separate because they have to be, you start to believe it. And I mean, a huge reason why this podcast exists is because I don't want to continue believing it. And I don't believe that that is something that I should believe. And I've only been told that. And that is frankly dumb and capitalism.
Yeah,
So, and the systems and all the things.
yeah.
But there is a part of me that, like, I think not knowing enough makes me feel like I can't claim a title, right? So it's like,
Mhm,
yes, if I have a Roth IRA, or if I have a
mhm.
retirement, whatever, or if
Yeah,
I, I I might not know the full ins and outs of it, or I don't have a degree in it, or I haven't been trained in it. And therefore, how can I call myself something that I have a master's in acting. I can call myself an actor. And honestly, if I didn't have that,
Mm,
I can also call myself that. If I just believe
yeah.
I'm an artist, I'm still an artist. But because in the world that we live in, me saying I have an MFA in acting, somehow, therefore, to all the other people, they're like, oh, she actually knows what she's talking about, even if I didn't have that. But like for the what it means in society, now I'm verified in what I do. But if I were to invest and have all these things that you had mentioned that would make me an investor, or even if I was thinking about it and taking those beginning steps, I don't know enough to be like, because I've done this, I am an investor. How do I shift that though? You know what I mean?
Let me tell you a secret.
I'm ready.
Oh,
I'm
I'll
ready.
tell you a couple of secrets.
Please.
One, the people that you think are investors don't know what they're doing to begin with. They don't.
100%. Yes.
So that's the
Same.
first thing. Is
No one does,
that
really, clearly.
no one even
No
knows
one
what they're
does.
doing, and they don't have a crystal ball because if they knew what they were doing, they would be the wealthiest people on the planet. They would make all the
100%.
best decisions. So they actually don't know as much. They know something. They know a little bit more. But also, I think you actually are an astute investor because an astute investor knows what they don't know.
Yeah.
They know that there's more to know. They know
Yeah.
there's more to learn. And so there are people listening to this who are saying, like, I agree with Jennifer. I'm not an investor. I'm an artist. And that's like an identity possession, right? And that's
Yes.
something else, right? Like a form of identity. Like I identify as an artist. I don't identify as an investor. I'm not asking everyone to shift and say, I'm no longer an artist, I'm an investor. Or is that I'm an artist, I'm an investor, now I'm an artist.
Right.
I'm asking you to take on different aspects of a personality that you now
Mm.
have multitudes of perspective, multitude of
Yeah.
interests that you then can use to your own benefit, hopefully the benefit of others around you, your community, your family, your loved ones in the world.
Yeah.
That you can be so many things. You're not just one thing. And
Yeah.
also the issue of external validation and
Yeah.
confirmation that I'm hearing, the bit of like, oh, I have these external signifiers that validate, like I have a degree, I've had
Right.
these jobs. But if you're mindful of like you are those things because of who you are, and those things are just reflection of that belief and then being validated out in the world and not the other way
Mm.
around. Not like
Mm.
this thing came and now I'm this, but no, you were first that thing and now this external thing validates that what you already knew.
Yes.
It takes your power back to saying like, because regardless of things come or not, you know yourself that I am an investor, I am an artist,
Yeah.
and nothing outside of me can ever take that away from me nor give that to me. And
Mm.
anything I'm in experience in, whether that be school or professional work that I believe will validate, that's for everyone else. That's for the world to see
Yeah.
it. But this is about me growing and edifying myself. Because
Yeah.
hopefully we do things not just to have validation, but we do things because we believe it'll grow us, that it'll
Yeah.
give us new skills, new perspectives.
Yeah. I love that shift because it's like, yeah, and you're 100% right. It's like if I identify as this thing, then I am that thing. And even if I'm a beginner of the identification that I'm putting on myself, I'm going to keep growing in it. It's like if I really want to call myself an investor and I recognize that currently I'm able to invest of my time and energy, then I'm still an
Mhm.
investor. And if maybe in a day or 6 years I'm able to give other kinds of resources
Yes.
of myself, then I'm still I love that shift. I think
It's a baby shift. Like
love it.
I'm not expecting everybody to be investing $1 million into companies. So
Yes.
no, that's not what
Thank
I'm
you, please.
asking.
Yeah, mhm.
It's baby steps, baby steps.
Yeah,
That's why we started with the balance
yeah,
sheet,
yeah.
portfolio. Like we're gonna do baby. We start using these terms openly because we want to remove the veil
Yeah.
and make it
Yes.
simple.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
there are people who are invested, use that word here, in you not knowing. There are people invested in
100%.
you being ignorant
That
and you
part.
feeling disenfranchised. And I would hope that people listening to me feel angry about that
Yes.
and feel like, spike can be a great motivation. Like, I know there are people who don't want me to know this and people who don't
Yes.
want me to share this information with you, and hoping that you won't feel inspired by this and one day decide to change your life and that you
Yes.
would stay in your position. So I hope that, you will chip, but like, I recognize not everyone will sign up for that. And
Yeah.
some people, like, because of life circumstances or where their own position to say like, this is where it is and I'll stay. But hopefully, they'll come back to this podcast, come back to this
Yeah.
listening, like, change it.
Yeah. Oof. These are little truth bombs being dropped left and right. I am here for it. I also am more curious within more specifically the charity that y'all are doing.
Yes.
What are you hoping for in collaboration with artists in as you would continue expanding the work that you're doing, the opportunities that you're giving? What are some of the things that you are envisioning with the overlap?
Narrative. I think something I actually studied film in college. My education or my background, I didn't study economics or finance
Yeah,
or business, accounting, nothing. I studied cinema, television, and emerging media studies. So you can get even more liberal artsy fartsy than that.
I love it. I love it.
And I hope that we'll find more ways to hone narrative. And what does that mean? I think that
Yeah,
there should be productions about investing. I think there should be productions, like theatrical productions, on screen, off screen productions of like what does it mean to be in the finance world, or what does it mean, and like and not just like the boring stereotypical like like Wolf of Wall Street. I'm talking about
right.
true narratives of people changing their lives, changing their communities. Because I think people are ready for those type of narratives, and also like those people who cut through the fodder, who cut through the difficulty of life to share and benefit others. That really excites me because I
Mhm.
think that again, this conversation, the way this conversation has blossomed so beautifully, I think is evident of like the broader water we're swimming in. That we know
100%.
that there aren't enough narratives out there. People like you and I having conversations like this today. And so, as much
Yeah,
as artists can cultivate and tell those stories and share them with the masses, I think we will, because I think art is a way to change culture, and we need
yeah.
both like infrastructure of the work that art makes is doing, but also artists to help tell the narrative and push the envelope.
I love that. How do you recommend, say, like, I had a story that I did this. I
Mhm.
wrote a short film and I'm wanting for it to be produced. And actually what I need are financial investors or people that maybe have, different kinds of resources for me to create this film. What are some things that you feel are helpful tools for me to reach to people who are more in your land than my land?
There is a wonderful website called Kickstarter,
Mhm.
which I know that a number of my friends who are artists have used to finance and
100%.
fundraise for the art projects. That's one
Yeah,
that
there's,
comes
like,
immediately to mind.
Indiegogo is another
Yeah,
one that people use.
Indiegogo, but I think
Getting
that
started.
one probably the first I would think too, if you're talking about just table stakes financing your art project, right? You would get off the ground. But then also there are a number of artists and finance communities, like philanthropic groups. So in New York City, there's the Leslie Loman Museum, and I think they have a really robust community of philanthropists who support the museum, who may be interested in supporting emerging art. I'm
Mhm.
talking more like visual
Yeah, yeah,
artists
yeah.
or art installations. There's also a group called Queer Art, which is another really well-known not-for-profit organization that supports emerging LGBTQ artists in New York
Mhm.
City. I know that this is a international podcast, so people listening are like, "I'm not in New York, sorry, this is my worldview." Sorry, I'm just giving
No,
the
but
short
no,
list
but
here.
Google is also a place. Google's a place.
Yeah, but those
Yeah.
are some that I think of immediately that come to mind about artists to find resources, and resources I mean like yes, dollars help fund your artwork, but also there is another artist residency program actually that one of my close friends who's a part of our work. It's called the Silver Arts Project.
Mhm.
They do artist residencies, again, visual performing artists, and it's based in New York City. They give artists actual space to produce their artwork. So those are
Amazing.
three organizations, like Les
Yeah.
Moment probably for like once you have your work, you can be displayed in a museum. Queer art, more so like developing artists. Civil Arts Project, with also New York, I think it's really well known and doing great work. But
Yeah.
then quick Kickstarter, Indiegogo, probably just like the table stakes for
Yeah.
fundraising.
What
Um,
about for, like, meeting folks in your world, right? I feel like
mm,
so often a lot of this comes to relationships, right? And it's like you have to start somewhere, like you and I are new to each other, and now
yeah,
this is like the blossoming of a new relationship, which I'm really pumped and excited about. And, but how do other folks start to meet people in these other spaces? Are there or maybe is your charity ever at one point going to like do a mingle or so, like
yeah.
are there places that are doing
Yeah, I
this?
would love that. I would love to do a mingle. We did one actually during our summit week this past June in New York City. On the last day, we had a 5-day summit. We had over
Yeah,
500 participants. We partnered
amazing.
with Microsoft, the United Nations, and Amazon, and a number of other wonderful corporate and financial partners, law firms, accounting firms, like that. And the last day of our summit was a private reception, which we brought in queer artists, queer visual artists, and they also displayed the work from really well known art gals like Hauser and Worth and others to talk about their artwork and like what it means to them, because finance world and art world oftentimes do have overlap. More so visual artists
Yeah,
like painters, sculptors, and
right.
etc. But also I'm reading a really interesting book now by an investor who founded the firm Greycroft called No Red Lights, and he talks about his over 50 years of investing in VC that he was a financier for a number of Broadway productions. Right.
Mhm.
I think you an artist or someone who is working in the theatrical world who wants to get their off-Broadway production financed, they might want to be familiar with organizations like mine and others
Right.
because they might meet potential backers, angels for their productions.
Exactly.
People have shared interests and interests outside of the day-to-day work, and some people want to tap into their creative outlets. And
Yeah.
you'd be surprised how many investment bankers want to be in Broadway and want to do
Yeah.
do theatrical work. And so, but they can't leave their desk job, but they will happily like support your project if if it meets within like their own thesis of the work that they want to support.
Yeah.
So but you wouldn't know that unless you're piling going into spaces where you feel like you're the outside.
Exactly.
So I'm encouraging those listening to this who are like, I'm artists, I have work. It was like, you need to go into your neighbor community and find people that you wouldn't normally talk to, and find the courage within yourself to say like, hey, I am valid. I'm okay. Like I am okay as I am. And I have this talent, this unique perspective, and I'm okay to be in this space. And
Yeah.
people might be like, oh, why are you here? But like, I'm here because I want to meet new people and I want to learn
Yeah.
new things and I want to
Yeah.
be like you and I want to share my talent with other people.
Yeah.
Um, and so try it.
I feel like as I'm sitting here and this is how my, creative brain works and I'm an ideas gal, that's just like who I am. I'm just like, all I wanna do now is create this really cool mixer. I
Hmm.
really and maybe you and I kiki about this off
Yes.
mic of like, yeah, getting these folks who really like actually are curious and wanting and desiring relationships across these what feels like two disparate worlds that really do have crazy overlap and also frankly shared interest and
Yes.
uh, can really help each other a lot
Hmm.
without like putting the pressure of transaction on it. I really think there is something to taking away the veil of you are so different and I am so different and we have nothing to talk about by just like having a bunch of folks in a room who all have shared and expressed some sort of interest in the other part of it and then seeing what happens. I don't know what it is. I haven't created
Oh, no,
this.
no,
This is
I
happening in real
already have
time.
I have a couple ideas actually how that might show up.
Great.
We'll have to offline on that. That'd be good.
Great. Done. Yeah, and if somebody's listening and they're like, "Wait, this is inspiring me. I also have an idea for this," or "I know a person," or whatever, then, like, this is the start of the thing, and this is exactly what we're talking about, which is, like, how are
Mhm.
we creating the change? Um, as we begin to wind down our time, and I know we bounced around so much, is there anything that's, like, on your heart or your mind that we didn't touch on, or that maybe you wish that you had known or something somebody told you once that has is just, like, the way that you see the world that allows you to fully show up? Just, like, anything that, like, as we're winding down that might be
Yeah.
floating around for you.
One thing I wanna make sure that we talk about is that money has as much power as we give it,
Yeah.
and the emotional power of money, and how money can be weaponized against people.
Yes.
There's the real thing called financial abuse, and so some people listening to this might feel like that's an area of my life which I don't look at my bills. I don't look at so I just head in the sand. I don't want to deal with
Mhm.
it, and that's valid. And I think that people should, as much as they can, find communities of support to talk about those issues, to find peers who can help work through that. What I'm hoping is that from our conversation today, people feel inspired to explore horizons they've dismissed, frankly, that they
Mhm.
thought, this is beyond my reach, this is beyond my warehouse, I can't do this. And they're willing to pick up the book, pick up the podcast, pick up something and decide like, I'm just gonna try 30 seconds today, 15 seconds. Let's do just a little bit and just Google a term. Tiana said something that I really don't understand. I'm going to investopedia.com and I'm going to look
Mhm.
up these terms she referenced. I'm going to learn just a little bit more, just so I have some command over this.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, this work is about confidence, and it's about also about your own personal power and recognizing that like anything that you have externally first began internally, and
Mm.
before you can go out in the world and have like this power that you now see, you had to cultivate that internally. And I'm hoping that, the conversation today can help push people to a place like they begin to cultivate that word. Empower for good. For good.
Yes.
For good.
Yes.
Not
Yes.
for not for evil.
Yeah, we gotta it's crazy that we have to caveat that now. Do you know what I mean? Like that that should just be the baseline, but we have
But
to
no,
say it.
for
Like,
good.
yes.
Not for your bottom
Mhm.
line. For good.
Mhm. Yeah. I am so grateful for you showing up in the space the way that you have, for being willing to go on this journey. And more importantly, for being, I know you probably don't see it like this, but I'm going to reflect what I've experienced of you is just, and I know we're really trying to say that like they are one and the same, but really you are a bridge in a space that really does feel, and I'll own myself, so inaccessible and
Mhm.
so far away and removed and sometimes really harmful and painful to my world. And I'm so grateful that there are people like yourself who are really trying to shift that narrative, who are actively doing things to make the world, in no hyperbole, a better place and a
Mhm.
more equitable and uh like just like habitable society, to show up more fully and to be brave in all of the things and to own all of who we are, so that we can continue coming together, creating community for this collective good, so that we can shift the world that we live in and have access to more and abundance. And so thank
Mhm.
you for the work that you're doing. Um, I'm so excited for this being the beginning of whatever our journey is together. But I also, hope that for anybody who's listening, Tiana's bio and information will be in our show notes, so please check out the work. But I'm excited for people to also just know that people like you exist, And as you said, like if you don't even see somebody who is doing the thing, you don't know that they are there, then who is your role model to aspire towards? Or can you even see possibility in that? And it's like you are that for so many. And so thank you is my long spiel.
Well, well, thank you for the invitation. It does mean a
Yeah.
lot that you extended your home, like this podcast, your
Yeah.
platform to me and helping to share our message. So it means so much. Thank you.
Yeah. For anybody who wants to work with you, who perhaps wants to invest, who
Yes.
perhaps wants to learn more, who wants to give of their time or energy, or just, see how they can collaborate more with you, where within your boundaries can
Well,
people
Jeff
reach
Bezos,
you?
Jeff Bezos, if you're still listening, we haven't steered your way yet.
Yeah.
Find us at lgbtvc.org. And I'm also on all social platforms. So Tiana Naomi Tukes on Insta. I'm not really on that other app with the bird, or formerly had the bird on anymore. I'm not on
Hmm.
that. But yeah, those are great places to reach out. But yeah, I'd say the best place to reach out is probably through our lgbtvc.org because we have forms to sign up for information, sign up for newsletter, and we're pretty accessible through there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer.